take about a minute. Take about a minute, I think.
Yeah.
Our 4 minutes run, so our clocks run a little faster, guys, right? So I don't know, our clocks run on jet wheels, yeah, not on mud wheels. so our 5 minutes end very fast, faster than usual, right, Lavi?
I think the perception of time kind of changes when you're on a webinar.
I know. So
feel free as you come up with ideas to start using chat feature, right? So
yeah. So I just want to have a quick look, Lavi. No, okay.
So we're getting some
Just some second. Okay, Anil, yeah.
Share some past successful cases for resourcing, and also share resource challenge in parallel while speaking with customer for phased plan. Yeah. Okay. Good.
That's a good recommendation, Anil. So we will read as they come. We'll read. I just want to see the participants. Can we? Yeah, just participants. Yes. Scroll. Keep scrolling. Keep down. Up. Okay, so she knows not the others. It's Sheena's birthday.
Yeah.
So never mind. I just want. Okay. I think others. We give about a minute. I think I'd invite you to think. Yeah, think and.
I'm assuming and hoping that this is a scenario you're familiar with. I think knowing your business as we do, I'm sure this does resonate.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, I think it does. Unfortunately, fortunately.
So again, Lavindra, both of us are cognizant that the participants have a vast experience. They experienced. They've been facing these scenarios or experiencing these scenarios, and they have their responses to it. The key here is how can we think differently from what we've been doing and what we've been thinking.
Yes.
It is nothing right or wrong about how you would approach this.
Yes.
Key always is, hey, could we be doing something different to get different results? That's the whole piece here,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
All right. So shall we move on? We've got one sort of response so far. I'm sure. Okay. Ask client for the possibility to split the required skill set to members in the team. Great.
That's a good one, Lemon.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you connected the dots pretty well this time, Lemon. Okay.
So I think the key takeaway here is that this is you trying to create some space so that the urgency doesn't derail your ability to deliver and to look at the entire scenario of possibilities, right? So when this is going on, the initial kind of pressure or instinct is to say, yeah, let's agree because we want the business. Maybe that's a very kind of pending or pressing need. But what you want to do is then to kind of carve out a space and then think outside the box a little bit and say, hey, how could I then reframe, and reposition this whole structure, right? Maybe think of something else to do that. Maybe it's not a tried and true. We always say go here, go there, but maybe we try something else with the participation of the client, of the salesperson, and all that.
So okay, we got some more responses. Patna, which is like the best alternate to a negotiated agreement. Yeah, so Patna is always good. Patna can be pretty complex. When I say that, it's a fantastic tool for negotiating. The only piece is you do require time. It has to be a large one. Yeah, so Patna is a very good tool, and it's tried, it's tested. Yeah. So thank you very much, Anand. Yeah, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Yes.
Excellent.
So we could move on now. Lavindra, you raised a good point. You said this is where the reframing relating can. I think this is also where questioning. What are the type of questions you ask in the discussion, which we are coming to? We're coming to all of that. This is where you question the client. This is where you question your sales team. This is how questioning for clarification, exploration, discovery, what have you. We will come to that. So questions are a key piece, as we saw in discussions. So moving on.
Moving on. Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
So competency here relating. So why don't I maybe we'll demonstrate this a little bit. So one of the competencies that we think you should have in your toolkit at this stage is relating. And so I'm going to give an example. I'm going to role play here and be the client, and Deep will then do a reframing exercise.
Relating
exercise. And then the other two, maybe you guys should take a step.
So just, Lavi, before we get into that, what really is relating? Relating means in a conversation, in a negotiation, discussion, we want to be able to relate. We want to demonstrate to the other party, yes, we relate with your problem. We relate with your outcomes. We relate with your issues. We relate with your concerns. We relate. So relating is that part. The moment you can relate with something or with somebody, Lavi, how helpful could that be to really build trust?
Because it's an empathetic response, right? So it does, I mean, it first of all, I think it confirms that you heard them, which is very important.
Yeah.
And then it also then puts you in the same context and in the same frame of emotion that they are in. So then it immediately builds a rapport. So I think this is really true. So you want me to take so I'm the client. I'm going to say, so I'm speaking with one of you, and it says, this estimate seems way off. The numbers just don't add up for me.
So, I probably would have felt the same, Lavindra, when I had a first look at this. Even when I was actually making it, it seemed like that. But no, there is a whole context to this.
Right.
So what did that do for you?
So I think when you do that, first of all, you acknowledge that you heard me.
Yes.
Second, you validate that I my estimate
felt like that as well.
That it's high, that you agree that it was high.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I think you also sort of started the initial reframe, which was to say, but while that was true, I then realized why these numbers are coming up high, right?
Yeah.
So then you'd obviously have a logical explanation for the client on why those numbers are
absolutely
high.
So what I didn't do was, I didn't rebut Lavindra. I didn't say, no, we are very competitive. This is the market rate. Go, compare apples to apples. You'll get this. No, now but don't we tend to do that?
Right. And or the corollary is to say, well, we can give you a discount.
Yeah.
That also is a bad thing.
So typically very easy. Okay. I actually do feel the same. I would have actually felt the same. I was doing the numbers. I thought they were looking a little high, yet blah, blah, blah. Explain yourself. So how about we let the participants do the rest?
Yes.
So we'd like you to take a shot, take a stab at the other two. Give you a minute each, guys. Yeah. Again on chat. Or we'll open up. I think
if somebody wants to,
chat,
if somebody wants
we'll allow you to talk.
Talk, then we'll allow you to
just
talk.
Raise your hand. We'll allow you to talk. So the next one, go for it, ladies and gentlemen.
Number 2.
So go to participants, raise your hand. Yeah. Attendees, you could just raise your hand. You have you'll have that icon. Who'd like to take a stab at
actually responding?
So like I said, you could just, you don't have to type. You just raise your hand. We'll allow you to, we'll just unmute you.
Any volunteers this morning?
This is interesting. This really is interesting. We'd like you also. Okay. We don't have any volunteers this morning.
Okay, you want to maybe do a second one then?
Let's
and
quickly
then maybe
do that for you. So yes.
So I'm frustrated with your team always being late in getting critical deliverables.
I would have felt the same love. If it's about deliverables and a critical, I would have felt the same. Let me get to understand the issue and come back.
Simple as that.
It's so what does that really do? It neutralizes the emotions very nicely, and you got to mean it, though. You got to really mean what you're saying. Yeah. And that's how it really works. So in conflicting situations, when you're negotiating, relating really helps. Yeah. So let's move on.
Okay, so same thing with the team members. I cannot work another weekend. You'd have to use another resource. So
what would you normally say? Actually, I cannot work another weekend. You'll have to use another. Well, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised and say, "What?" You'd probably do that. What? No.
Don't you know how critical this project is?
And you start explaining your stand. Okay, that's a normal thing we would normally do. First up, think about relating. Okay, I can understand that you don't want to work another weekend. You've been working many weekends. Maybe in your position, I could feel like that. What are you really doing this weekend? Then you're getting into a conversation again.
Yeah.
Right? So keep this in mind, ladies and gentlemen, relate. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go from relating competency to the next one,
which is reframing.
Questioning, right? No. Yeah, reframing.
Yeah, reframing.
You want to give it a little up?
Sure. So what is reframing? Reframing is having the same picture, the same event, situation, or what is being said, just changing the frame of reference. That's reframing. Through examples, you'll understand better. So let's do the first one again.
Yeah. So I'm the client. I said, I want to make sure that we don't miss any deadlines on this new project, because in the previous project, we suffered huge losses due to missed deadlines.
Sure. So Lavindra, were there any times in the last project where we also kept to timelines? Were there any times when we did meet the timelines and deadlines?
Well, yeah, yes.
Okay. So while I understand your issues, we will commit to doing the same. Leave it there. Yeah. Just reframe, leave it. Reframe here was, do you remember a time where we actually completed things on time in the last project? Of course, there are always times when we do. So you're reframing the problem here, right? You're helping the client move, shift to a more positive state.
Yeah. So if I'm coming in
never get defensive
from a negative place aggressively, I think by you asking me the question first, you get me to pause, and you get me to then think back to, I obviously was not expecting that question. So I have to think back and say, well, hold on a second. Yes, no, or maybe, right? So it makes me think, and that allows me to check my emotions just enough, and to then kind of reset and reframe and come back. So if I were to still come back, I probably won't be as hostile.
Absolutely. Yeah. So reframing is really, really a key piece. It's more a part of neuroscience and linguistics. And, end of the day, linguistics is so important because that's our medium of communicating.
Yes. Right. So anybody want to take a stab at the other two? Or
so if you could reframe the other two.
Again, if you want to raise your hand, I know nobody did that last time. Yeah. We're happy to take all three, but I think it'll be more effective. And don't be shy. I think, make mistakes. That's completely acceptable.
And I'd also invite you all to have a look, Google reframing. How does reframing work? Yeah, I'd invite you to do that. Now, let's do one more maybe.
Okay.
So do we have anyone who's raising their hands? No volunteers to do the next one. If they're not, we are happy to do it for you again. So you guys are killing me. The customer is upset about the project being behind schedule. Now that's the sales lead. Salespeople talk like that. I cannot get them to focus on this new piece of work. I need to sell to them. Wow. Again, a very familiar scenario, maybe a familiar situation. So you guys are killing me. The customer is upset about the project being behind schedule. I cannot get them to focus on this new piece of work. I need. Okay, what would help you to get their focus? You just reframed it. What would help you to get their focus?
And not only do you reframe it, but you actually put the onus of the answer on the sales lead. Right, you didn't take on the burden of trying to respond to that with data. You actually put the ball back in the salesperson's sales lead code and say, "Hey, what would you do?"
What would help us maybe or you to get their focus back, right? Great, because it's not like a rescue mission all the time. We don't have to get onto a rescue mission. Not required, ladies and gentlemen. It's only our mindset that we believe it's required and it can pacify. No, clients and all don't need pacifiers. They need solutions. They always need solutions. Pacifying doesn't help. Yeah. So that's a reframe. Moving on. Big one. Questioning. Now, at every stage, ask questions. There are 4 types of questions. Exploratory, as we go, we'll discuss them. Clarification, reflective, and probing. We'll come to all of them. What is exploratory question? This is a question to understand and not to sell. Not to sell, to understand. So, examples of exploratory questions. Before we get there, keep in mind, these all questions should be open-ended questions mostly, especially in exploratory. So what's most important to you in this negotiation? That's a good exploratory question. What can I do to make things right? We just talked about it. Reframe it, yeah? Clarification questions. Did I hear you say da da da? Did I understand you when you said that? Think about it. What are these questions doing to you? What do they do to the other party? They get them to think. It's all about thinking.
And also engage, right?
Engage.
So it's not one way, or it's not kind of all telltale. It's conversations, it's discussions, right? Which is the stage we're in.
Sure. Then you have probing question. Probing is, why do you think this is the case? Why do you think we are in this mess? Or what have you? Why do you think we missed the timeline? We missed the deadline? Why do you think we cannot get that skill in our team? Why do you think? How did you conclude? People jump to conclusions that, you know what, you guys don't have the right skills. Another person might say, you know what, I don't have the resource. Hey, really? How did you jump to that conclusion? Now you're recovering. You're recovering the state, right? Reflective. What can we do to move forward? How was this interaction useful? Now you're getting them to reflect. So in case of an impasse or a situation where things are not moving, I think, what can we do to move forward is a great question to ask. What do you think, Lav?
Absolutely. I think these categories of questioning is really, really important. I think if you keep this in mind, put it in our toolkit, I think it really helps build trust and value. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So stage 3. Yeah.
So Lavindra is going to take you through stage 3 about now adding value through the insights that we have garnered through the discussions. So we've had the discussions, and now what are the value we're going to add through insight? It's a great stage. It's a critical stage, like all other stages. Lavindra.
Yes. So this is the time where, you've done great prep and research. You've had intensive discussions with great probing questions. You've reframed, you've related, right? You've done and built a considerable amount of trust. You've got a good amount of data on on the true needs and aspirations and motivations around what your client and you want to jointly accomplish here. So now you need to kind of add another dimension, is to add value, draw some insights from those conversations. And then at the stage here is when you're obviously now going to be proposing or making an offer of some kind, putting together a solution. So the garnering of insights and then presenting that becomes really useful. So let's do a kind of a quick 1-minute poll, and I hope that everybody's still in a chat mode. So how do you define value? Right? Just let's take a minute or less. Please use the chat feature. How would you define value? I hope everyone is still engaged.
I'd like to see some. I'd like to see some responses before we move forward. So that means we are not going to move forward till we get some responses. How do you define value? Just a definition.
Yeah.
And there's no right and wrong here.
Answer, yeah.
There's no right and wrong. We all define value in a certain manner, which is all right.
Yeah, totally.
So we are waiting for a response, if not too many. How do you define value?
Yep. And you can put it in the chat.
Okay. So as we go, if you do want to define, shoot your answers. We will continue. Yeah. You're free to shoot your. Okay. Provide. Liminzi. Provide options of solutions to client. Okay.
Importance of something. Okay.
Importance of something. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Very interesting, Anil.
Mm-hmm.
If you were doing this live, I'm sure we would have probed deeper. Meeting expectations.
Meeting expectations. Okay.
Okay. Great. So the next one is how do your clients perceive value? Value equals something that all parties value. Yeah. Great. Agreed.
Yeah.
So I think we all have a basic, or a pretty decent understanding of value. I mean, it's like as somebody said, for pornography, if I see it, I'll know it's pornographic, right? So I think when you see value, you know it's value, right? It's not a I need to really understand it or internalize it. People know value when they see it, right?
So
or hear it or feel it. Yeah.
So if you want to just really quickly, Mal, how do your clients perceive value? So are we saying actually there's a distinction we are making, how clients perceive value and how we define value actually is,
yeah, I think there is sometimes a delta, right?
There's a delta.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we have a perception or a thought process where we say, we are this, and the client should see this value we're bringing, right? We're bringing this, we're bringing that. We've said this 20 times, right? And then we assume that because we've said it or shown it, maybe demonstrated it or showed a case study or whatever, that the client is perceiving us the way we perceive that, the way we perceive value. And that obviously is not true, right? So perceptions, these are all perceptions, so they obviously vary, right? So understanding kind of the starting point of how they perceive you and what you can do to change that, I think is the key.
Sure.
So I'm going to kind of skip the how do you perceive value because I'm actually going to answer that question.
Sure.
So let's go to the next slide. I think it probably cements what we're talking about a little bit more. So one of the things that, when you kind of deconstruct how clients perceive you, so there's a clear kind of three buckets here. So the one is there's an existing perception that the market creates about you. So, when clients engage you, like if I say a name like Tata or McKinsey, right? You may have never encountered them or
done business with them.
But there is a certain perception in your mind about how valuable they are, right? As a brand, as a reputation, right? Now, when you start to work with them, that perception may change, either increase or decrease or stay neutral, right? Yeah. So that's what we mean here. So when we say market perception, that's that. So when clients engage with you, even before you say a word, they already have some base understanding of your value, right? So we got to understand that. Then each client that you meet within that same organization will have different perceptions, obviously, right? So my question to you here is, if you look at the three areas of how clients get perception of your value, the market perception, you have very limited control over, right? You can't really change that. I mean, they walk in with that baggage or value of it, and that's it. And you can't really, change it. Whatever Gartner analysts have said about you, that's that. You can't really go and change that. Similarly, if this is an existing client, and they work with you, maybe on a different project with a different delivery head in a different area of Varison, fine. That may be a positive or negative, right? And that perception also you can't change because that's the past, right? We can't fix the past. So these two things we can't change. So the only thing that we really have full, complete control over is our current interactions with our client. So as we go through this 4-stage model, we've had an opportunity that is in our full control to guide, fashion our client's perception of value. That is in our control.
I want to highlight that. I want to highlight a point. So what Lavindra is saying is, again, from the preparation stage, the information we are gathering and how we are discussing for more information, and then that value add. So all of it is the current interactions which have the potential. They have the potential to change past experience.
Absolutely.
They have a huge potential to change. So don't go by the fact about a past experience. Use the current, leverage these discussions from what you're learning today as well to by default change that past perception.
Absolutely.
Whatever that is. It could be a good perception. Well, great. If it's good, it'll only enhance, right?
Correct. It only can go up, actually. Right. So how do we increase client perception of your value? Now I'm going to suggest a few things, and then I want you to kind of think through how you might also do things, right?
This is my favorite, by the way.
It is.
This is so amazing. How do we, increase perception of the value? It's fantastic.
So it's by positioning, right, and demonstrating our capabilities and competencies. So there may be a different way. Now, if for example you think the client has a perception that you're a low-cost provider of services, you might actually want to rethink that positioning in this particular client engagement and say, you know what? No, we are actually a niche provider, right? We're not, like someone else. We are actually a niche provider. You understand the perception of where they may be coming from, but you now change because you're in a different area. You've got a new, alliance or merger with someone else. So you're a different company. So you want to now project a different positioning, right? And a different sense of capabilities and competencies. It's really, really important that you start to do that from the get-go, right? So forget the past, forget what the market has to say, set a new set of positioning, and you can do that. It's in your control. Another area that you can use to increase the perception of for clients of your value is in the packaging and presenting of the offer, right? So packaging is key. So if you've talked about quality and you've discussed about all of this stuff, if you put forward a document or an email or whatever that you're doing, poor grammar, lots of spelling mistakes, right? It doesn't look like anybody gave it a second look.
Or the structure, the articulation, the visuals.
Right, and all of that, right? I mean, if you come to a meeting sloppily dressed, all of this packaging, as we call it, is not just, is a whole entity. And I think we've discussed this in executive presence as well. It's really important that you then project the new value that you want to project, right? So it's very key. Another way to enhance is obviously by articulation, right? This is what we've been kind of honing on throughout this discussion today, right? So illustrate the positive impacts to the client, right? Articulate that clearly and nicely. Don't just put that as a bullet line, or 20, 30 bullets. I mean, think of innovative ways on how you could articulate that in the offer that you're making or in the conversations that you're having, right? So that's kind of 3 things that I would do. And I know there are more. So I want you to think through how you might do that, right? And we'll have a little exercise
great.
that will do that. So what the point I want to make is, so this is kind of the axes, right? So you have value on one axis, stages on the other. So, okay, this curve could be, exponential, could be, as Lee pointed out yesterday, we could sometimes start with a very high value.
That's the data gathering, prep.
And then somehow we kind of slip up and it just comes down, right? And then, of course, you should be surprised.
And then it go out of the door.
Yeah, you should be surprised if you lose, right? So I think that is the expected kind of thing. And the point I want to make is, if there was an old perception of value, which is the arrow, the line that is lower than the other one, you can change that. So by taking charge of this particular interaction in a positive way, you can create a new perception of value. And that's what I wanted to really emphasize today, is that don't let the past become such an anchor, right? Think of, you've got a brand new, fresh start. Forget everything that's gone on before. Change the dynamic completely. Come through as like, wow, that's like a whole new, different area of Arison, right? If it was a negative situation, right? So that's what I wanted to emphasize.
So then I think the key here then, Lavi, is stay in the current discussions, the current negotiation. Don't bring any baggages of the past. Do not salvage. So consciously don't salvage why this happened in the past. Given another chance, make sure you prep it, you excel it, you sort of really do remarkable stuff in the current moment.
Yeah.
Even the discussions, everything else neutralizes.
Yes.
Yeah. If there is a past,
yeah,
that is.
Okay, so some questions that you may have asked in stage 2, that you may have even asked in early parts of stage 3, but here is I've highlighted 4 or 5 of these. These are all very recent questions. So what you want to do is make sure you've kind of asked the kind of questions like these, which are quite in depth, right? For example, what effect will this project have on productivity, profitability, market share?
Yeah.
You obviously should
for the client. For the client,
yeah.
How will it affect their productivity, their profitability? Now so what does this question like this tell the client or the other party, whoever the other party is about you? What does it tell? So I'm open to, the chat is always open. You all are free to write in your responses. What does a question like this tell the other party about you?
Okay, so things like why us, why me, right? Can any company person do this? Do we have some special attributes? So knowing what's special, this is about communicating, joint impact, and all that. So this is very, very key.
So Lavi, I want to give an example here of negotiation. Recent example. This happened yesterday with us. We are in the last stages of signing a contract with a very large software company. It's a 6-month contract, taking the senior leaders on a coaching journey and a leadership journey, right? Now, they came back to us with one sticky point, which was, why is the amount for an X element, which was coaching, why is that high? That is high, way too high from what we have experienced in the past with XYZ. Exactly that. You know what we did? We asked some difficult questions. But before that, we gave them that 40,000 rupees for a session of coaching is not the 1 hour or 90 minutes. It includes prep time. It includes travel time. It includes all of that. If we were to have this coaching sitting where we are via Zoom, then we can bring the price down substantially. If your people are okay to come to us now, that costed the client 3 hours for them now. So what we said was, here you are gaining 3 hours of yourself, plus we are losing our 3 hours. You've really gained 6 hours by us being present there. Tell you what, we didn't have to budge. The client understood this so beautifully and received it so well. Just again, asking, and the questions we asked, the one question we asked was, so if you are sort of are challenged with this price, what do you want your people to achieve? So we asked the question, what do you really want your people to achieve, these 6, 7 leaders going forward? So he actually said this. I said, for that, then you need a coach of a certain caliber. Now, it's something like, would I hire a coach who coaches Tendulkar to coach my son who's very interested in cricket at this point in time? I may not. So that's a good question to ask. What do you want them to achieve? Yes, once we know that, we'll probably position someone else who's more appropriate and probably bring the price down. Not a problem. But the skill sets required for you to achieve what you want to achieve are a little different, my friend.
Yeah. So
just that.
Example, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me, I'm cognizant of the time as well. So if you, let's do this activity really quickly, right? So don't have to come up with 3 separate ones, but if you can come up with a way, come up with an innovative idea on how you can increase, based on maybe a current project you're working on, to increase the client's perception of your value? What would you do differently now that you know what you know through this webinar?
So we want to allow them a couple of minutes?
Yeah, a couple of minutes. Yeah,
because we have about 10, then we need to just cover stage 4.
Yeah, and then we also have to wrap up. So
give them time for Q&A.
Yeah.
So I think a minute. You've not been very active. Okay, you've been active, but what is very active? Right? It's subjective. So maybe very quickly, 1 or 2 responses. Yeah. Though, Lavi, we probably really covered with so many examples that we gave. We do give a lot. We gave examples. I think that's good. Let's see.
So in the next 10 seconds, if somebody gives us something, we will go with that.
You can probably keep sending your responses.
Yeah.
We'll have a Q&A as well. So no problem. You can think about it, while we are still in that motion. So, okay, great. So that's
stage 4. We had the final leg here in terms of the value model.
So, when we talk of stage 4, actually, Lavi, it's important to say that things that we do in various stages are not sort of only relevant for that stage. So you do have discussions in the stage 3 as well. You do have discussions. So the only piece is discussions continue to evolve and the questions will change, right? That's what. Now, stage 4 is about, there's a lot of conflict that could happen. There's a lot of toing and froing finally when you're coming to really nailing the price, nailing the timelines, nailing the specs, all of the scope of work.
Yes.
Now that you're ready. So there is an element of managing conflict. Yeah, there's an element of difficult conversations, right? At that stage. That's when conversations become a little sticky, little difficult because money comes into play. Now this we are talking from the context of a client negotiation. But when it's a peer-to-peer, conflict still happens. Even with a team member, when, for example, the example we gave was a team member not being able to work on a weekend. Now there is a negotiation that happens, right? Though you don't need to go through all the 4 stages in that much time, but you still need to prep. You still need to have the discussion. You still need to have the value, even in that scenario, the value that the person will bring, or what can you do if they come on a weekend. That kind of stuff still happens, yeah. So quickly coming to conflict. Conflict management now is a great topic. It's a large topic today. What we are going to cover here is primarily the 5 ways, the 5 styles that we use. We use all styles. We predominantly may be using 1 or 2 of the 5 styles. There is something called the TKI assessment, which is a Thomas Skillman assessment. We're not giving that because in a webinar online situation, it's not possible. We normally do that in a classroom training where you will get to know your style. Today, you will know enough to really understand styles, what you could be. You'll be able to relate. What is it that you are using mostly, right? So essentially, in a negotiation, 2 things we do. We are either cooperative or assertive or both. We are both. So we could do 3 things. We are either assertive, cooperative, or we are both. Now, if you look at the graph on the left of your screen, assertiveness is when you are really competing. You want to win. You want to get your way. You want to have your way. Cooperativeness too much is when you're accommodating. So the balance between the 2 gives you collaborating. Then you're really collaborating. So to collaborate, you are assertive and you are cooperative. You're both. Now it's important to understand that each of these styles are used in various contexts. There is no best style here. There is nothing as best. There are times when you just have to get your way. There is a fire maybe. Maybe you are skilled enough you are experienced enough as a manager to take a call. That's the time you'll be more assertive. It'll be more competing style. That, you know what, right now, we got to do it this way. That's what it is. There is no other way. Those are different scenarios. Mostly people would want to, as professionals, as people who want to achieve, they would want to go to a collaborative style mostly. But like I said, collaboration means the issue should be a large issue. It is time consuming. You have luxury of time, right? So this is really what these 5 styles are. So avoiding is the least preferred style. Whenever we avoid a conflict, we actually tend to lose, not just we, other party loses out too, and a lot of possibilities get diluted, which could have given way to many more opportunities. Yeah, so that's one part of it. Now, if you look at the other side, there's something called the Louis-Hiam's negotiation matrix. Now, how this relates to negotiation matrix, the key point here is when the outcome of a negotiation is very important to us, we get into more of an assertive, competitive kind of a attitude. When the relationship is also very high, important to us, then we again get into collaborative. So how we do this is, the equation is, when the relationship is high and the outcome is as important, so both are very important, then we are, by default, we will demonstrate a collaborative style.
A win-win.
A win-win. Yeah. But sometimes the outcome is very important, right? Maybe it's a relationship that you've had for long, so you're very comfortable. You know what? My wife is not going to run away. She's not going to leave me. I'll have dinner of my choice. I don't care. I'll watch a movie of my choice. You know what? She's going to be happy. Tomorrow is another day. Well, you can't do that with new relationships. Yeah, relationships you're just building, where the trust is lacking. So yes, both become important. And that brings us back to the entire journey, Lavi. How we build step by step, we build that. Yes, it seems like it's a long journey, but all these stages overlap, they complement each other. The point is, if you do the right thing at the right stage, you're
going to get a win-win, which is what we
very different results. Yeah. The results, your experience will be very different.
Because I remember in the day one of the part one of this first instance, we did kind of set a ground assumption, which was that there was a high importance attributed to the relationship and a high importance in terms of outcomes. So we are kind of saying, we want to drive towards a mutual win-win.
Sure.
And the way to do that obviously is through value addition.
Absolutely. So here we have, when is competing best use, when is collaborating best, in what scenarios. Like I said, you're getting the recording of this webinar, you're getting these slides. I'd invite you to have a good look at them. When do you want to really compromise? When is avoiding, good? We never encourage it, but there are very few situations when it's good to avoid. And when is accommodating really good to use, yeah? So this is what it is. Yeah, love it.
So one big point, I think if people are interested in taking the assessment, I think that's something worth understanding. If you feel that, you want to truly understand what your, proclivities are, your styles are,
we could
give, you could obviously do a assessment.
We'll share it. Yeah, good point. So this is what we're going to do. You can put it on record. We will, with Anisha, Sheena, with your HR team, we'll share the instrument. It's a pen and paper. I would encourage you take this test. It's very interesting. It'll take you about 20 minutes. And there is a scoring sheet. You can do your own scores. Just don't cheat. Don't try and be a collaborator when you're not a collaborator. Okay? So don't do that. Be truthful to yourself, and then score and see which styles are you using predominantly. And through the guide, you can then always do newer things, newer ways to respond to a conflict. Yeah. So that's what it is. I think we should open it up now for some Q&A, some chat. So yes, we have about, how much time do we have?
Exactly 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Right on time.
So ladies and gentlemen, you could also raise your hand
And we can activate your
we
mic.
could activate your mic. Raise your hand. We could activate your mic. And if you have any questions, we do trust, found the webinar useful. We do trust, and we know that there are many tools here, many concepts that you could probably apply, quickly. You could just apply them, experiment with them, see what happens. See what happens.
Yeah.
That's what I would always encourage. So, any questions? Some of you who probably parked questions, who had questions along the way, we always encourage you park them. I hope you not park them too deep down in the basement. -3.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we have one person
great.
raising their hand.
Which is
Anil.
Anil. Let me just allow you to talk. Okay, one sec. Yeah. All right. Anil, go ahead. Just unmute. The Anil is. You can unmute him from there. Unmute. Yeah, Anil, we can hear you.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thanks a lot to Team Recalibrate, just creating this marvelous environment. I'm sure you can hear me very well, right?
Yes, clearly. We can.
Okay. So my quick question or quick thought is on value. When we create value to the customer, I generally perceive that customer feels that value is that we are giving something additional on top of what is expected out of us. Now, what can be the best way to create value which we are creating to the customer? And what is your way? What is your suggestion by which we can create the real value in customer's mind for the value which we are creating for the customer?
Great question. You're so right, Anil. You are spot on. Client and customer, no matter which part of the world are we, even in Mongolia, they want more than what you're offering. Yeah. Now, how do you create value? I think through the webinar we discussed, value starts to be created right from the onset first, right? And that's one part of it. If we stay with your example, okay, what else? Well, I think it's always worth asking. That's when questions, Anil, those powerful questions come into play. So one question, Anil, could be, what we are offering. Hello? So one could be, in what we have offered, what is missing? What is missing in what we have offered? Yeah. And the what you are requesting, how is that so important for you to get? Now, great to have this conversation. You are now sending the client in a very different direction. Yeah, because you're right, they will always want that more. And let them talk.
I think another way to look at this, Anil, is a little bit of a different perspective here. So I think you were talking more in terms of what will the client get in terms of deliverables and maybe discounts and everything else. I think that's one way to kind of look at that. But I think what we are saying in this framework really clearly, and maybe not as explicitly as I'm about to say, is that I think all these little things that we do, right, in terms of how we present, the quality of the questions, how we engage, our presence, our communication styles, unknowing to you, there is a kind of a thing at the back, right, almost like a bank of value, right, and trust that keeps increasing with every interaction that the client and you engage in. And that puts a bunch of credits that may not necessarily be reflected in a contract or in an offer, right? Because that is kind of intangibles. These are things. So the difference here is what really helps close a deal. See, two potential bidders for the same piece of work can have the exact same pricing, the exact same on paper technical competency.
Yeah.
And many times, I know in my experience, I've seen somebody go for another and wondering, hey, what happened there, right? So what usually the unknown there, right, many times is that they've built more trust and given a much different perception of value than you. Though in paper and maybe in anything else, you may look exactly the same. And that is what we're talking about. So what we are talking about today is that the client is less likely to ask for all of these additional incidentals if they feel that you are a trusted person from day one. And that's being, and those are the critics in the bank that you're not fully aware of, but you are building. You know you're building it by engaging in the model that we've suggested. But it's not something that, obviously you capture in a contract. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you.
Just very quickly, again, same thing. I heard very recently from one of our banking clients that many technology organizations, the large ones as well, who could be your competitors, when they come and they bid, what they go for is, he says, you know what, end of the day, Deep, they're pretty much the same, how they're interacting, how they're engaging. We go with price differentiator. Now, Anil, question for you guys. What are the other differentiators you could create, not just price? That's what I think, Lavi, you are saying,
exactly.
Those interactions. This is what I learned very early in my life. I was in advertising for a number of years and some very good advertising firms. The one thing I learned from there, there's not much I would say people learn from advertising, really, honestly. I know I've been in that industry. I didn't quite like that industry, so I exited. But the one thing I learned is people, if you can get people to like you, that's it. Just get people to like you as a person.
Well, advertising is all about liking.
Exactly. So that's one thing I really did learn pretty fast there. Yeah. So Anil, thanks for that question. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you both. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Okay. So any questions to show? Okay.
So want to share a few final thoughts and close then, Deep?
I think, Lavi,
okay.
Why not, if you like to?
I'll just like to say a few
absolutely.
couple seconds here. So I thank everybody for joining us. Appreciate your participation, feedback, and engagement throughout this two-part webinar series. And I think if you've communicated one thing maybe that came out of this negotiation webinar, is that if we are looking for two win-win situation where we want to have a long-term relationship as well as positive outcomes, right? The two axes in the last set of slides that we shared with you. Then I think the only way we know how to do this is to do this model where we consistently build value. And I think you must be at this point quite clear that the previous webinars on networking and executive presence are also key components. They feed into the strength of your ability to negotiate a mutual win-win. That's really my parting, my comment on that.
And I would probably only add that when things are not going our way, when we are feeling too pushed by the other party, now you know which stage is a stage where you want to pay more attention. Now you at least would know, you know what, even after bringing the client all this way, we are still being pushed, we are still being negotiated hard. Obviously, we didn't probably create that sense either of trust or perceived value somewhere down the line. So now you're aware of which buttons to press is what I'd say.
Great.
Which buttons do you need to now press? And take it away, yeah. So with that
in mind, I would like to, on behalf of Recalibrate, thank everybody for joining us this morning. And hopefully we'll see you all either in person or on a webinar on a future engagement.
Why not? Looking forward to work with Arascent, work with their leaders in the coming years, in the coming months. Yeah. So thank you very much for being on. And yes, we are signing off. This is Deep and Lavindra.
Take care, guys.
Bye.